Hi, I'm Emily from the Bowen Branch Library. Welcome back to our middle grade reader online book club. We are working our way through the Scorpio Races by Stiefvater with permission from Scholastic, so thank you very much to Scholastic for allowing us to use your titles like this, and to Stiefvater, of course. We are on chapter 18 of the Scorpio Races, and we're going to be reading through chapter 22 today. Make sure that you check the description box at the bottom of the video when we're done with this reading for the discussion questions for this part. We hope you enjoy chapter 18 through 22. Chapter 18, Sean. I'm not swimming through water. I'm swimming through blood. It billows around me in great underwater thunderheads as one of my hands finds Fundamental's spine. In my other hand I have a fistful of the hollyberries. I've gone years without using them to kill one of the water horses, and now I have them in my palm twice in one day. Fundamental's spine writhes. I feel a strange sucking sensation beneath me as one of his legs cuts through the water under my feet, the current dragging at me. I feel forward along his mane. My lungs feel pressed small in my chest. I can't see, and then I can. Fundamental's eye is wide open, white all around it, but he can't see me. A slick, dark kabalushka holds Fundamental's throat latch in its jaws. Blood floats from a ragged tear like steam. The Ushka horse's legs slice through the salt water, smooth and purposeful. It spares no attention for me. The Kabalushka has the colt in a steel grasp, and I, a small, vulnerable stranger in this world, am no threat. I need a breath. I need more than a breath. I need a long gasp and another one, but in front of me I see the Kabal's nostrils, long and thin. The berries are hard and deadly in my hand. I could watch it drown. But next to their two heads, I see the edge of Fundamental's wound. The colt's great, brave heart pumps his life out in time with my hammering pulse. There's no saving him from this. I watched him being born. Fundamental, rare colt, so close to the water horses that he loves the ocean like I do. Colors without any name flicker at the corner of my vision. I have to leave him behind. Chapter 19, Puck. Finn and I both wait up for Gabe that night. I boil beans, infernal beans, it feels like that's all we eat, and simmer inside my skin, planning what I will say to him when he gets here. Finn messes over the windows while I cook, and when I ask him what he's doing, he says something about a storm. Outside the window, the night-darkening sky is clear, except for some high, wispy clouds, thin enough to see through, far out at the horizon. There's no sign of foul weather. Who knows why Finn does any of the things he does? I don't even try to talk him out of his fiddling. We wait and wait for Gabe, my sense of betrayal simmering and then boiling and then simmering again. It's impossible to be angry for so long. I wish I could tell Finn what it is that's eating me, but I can't tell him about Malvern. It'll just make him start picking at his arms and obsessing over his morning rituals even longer than usual. "What do you think?" I ask casually, turning the little butter bowl around and around again so that the owl painted on the side looks at me and then Finn and then me again. "About selling the Morris?" "Why are you laughing?" He rattles at one of the window panes experimentally. "It's not even running." "If it was running?" "I might fix it tomorrow," Finn says vaguely. I think now that he is using the windows as an excuse to stare outside for signs of Gabe. "I don't want it to be out there when the storm gets bad." "Rain. Yes, sure," I say. "Selling it. What do you think?" "Well, I guess that depends on why we're selling it." "To get Dove better food during training." There is an agonizingly long pause before Finn responds. During the pause, he taps his finger all along the edge of a pane of glass before leaning in to peer at the join between glass and wood from an inch away. He seems quite content to finish experimenting with his weatherproofing before continuing the conversation. Finally, he says, "Is better food that expensive?" "Do you see alfalfa growing on this island?" "It depends," Finn says. "I don't know what alfalfa looks like." "Like the inside of your dusty head. Yes, it's expensive. It comes from the mainland." I feel slightly bad about snapping at him. It's not his fault that I'm cross. It's Gabe's. I can't believe that I might not get to confront him tonight about Malvern's appearance at the house. I can't stay up for him. I have to be up early tomorrow if I'm going back to the beach again. Finn looks mournful. I feel terrible. Maybe there's something else we can sell, like the useless chickens that spend most of their time dying before we can kill them for dinner. The whole lot of them would buy one bale of hay and not a bite of good grain. "Will it make her faster?" Finn asks. "Race horses should eat racehorse food." Finn casts a glance toward our dinner, beans with a lump of bacon donated by Dory Maud. That's what it takes. He sounds like I've asked him to saw off his left leg, but I know how he feels. He loves the Morris like I love Dove, and what will he have left if he doesn't have the car to putter over? Just the windows, and we only have 5 of them in the house. If I win, I tell him, we'll have enough money to buy it back. He still looks glum, so I go on. We'll have enough to buy 2 of them, a car to pull the other car when the engine stops on the first one. Now he has the ghost of a smile. We sit down and eat our beans with the lump of bacon. Without saying anything about it, we eat the rest of the apple cake, not leaving any for Gabe. 2 people at a table meant for 5. I don't see how I'll be able to sleep with this knot of anger inside me. Where is he? I think about that decapitated sheep that Finn and I found on the way to Scarmouth. How are we supposed to know if Gabe's working late or if he's dead by the side of the road? How is he supposed to know if we're home safely or dead by the side of the road, for that matter? Finn is the one who says it finally. It's like he's already gone. Chapter 20. Sean. That night, instead of dreaming, I lie in my bed and stare at the small square of black sky that I can see out the window of my flat. Though I'm dry now, I feel cold to my bones, as if I'd swallowed the sea and it lives inside me. My arms ache. I'm holding up the cliffs. I think of fundamental swimming so purposefully behind the boat. No, that's not what I think of. I think of Fundamental's head thrown back, the whites of his eyes, the vanishing beneath the water churned to mist around me. Again and again I dive into the water. Again and again it is too dark, too cold, too fast, too late. Again and again I see Mutt Malvern standing on the point of the cove watching. I haven't heard from Benjamin Malvern yet, but I will. It's just a matter of time. Kendrick! Daly's voice warning me. Too late. I can't stay in bed any longer. I roll to my feet. My jacket is still wet and gritty where I hung it over the iron curl of the radiator. Without turning on the light, I find my pants and my wool sweater and make my way down the narrow stairs to the stables. The 3 light bulbs that have been installed in the main aisle illuminate circles just below them. Everything else is in shadow. The way the sound of my breath disappears makes the darkness feel vast. As the thoroughbreds and the draft horses hear my footsteps down the aisle, they nicker hopefully. After what happened this afternoon, I can't look at them. I watched them all being born, just as I watched Fundamental being born. I can't block out their sounds as I pass, though. They slowly chew hay and stomp their hooves as an itch tickles their legs. Straw whispers against straw. Comfortable horse sounds. I walk past all of them to the stall at the end of the aisle, and there is Cor, just out of reach of the light. He is the color of old, dried blood. I lean on the edge of the stall, looking in. Unlike the land horses, Cor doesn't loiter over hay all night or sigh through his lips. Instead, he stands in the center of his stall, utterly still, his ears pricked. There is something in his eyes that the thoroughbreds will never have, something intense and predatory. He looks at me with his left eye, and then looks past me, listening. There is no way for him to relax, with the sound of the rising sea, with the smell of horse blood on my hands, with me restless before him. I don't know why Mutt Malvern was in Daly's place, and I don't know how he thinks it will escape his canny father that Mutt was on the point when the Kabalushka entered the cove. I think of Fundamental again, of his wide rolling eyes. Mutt was willing to sacrifice him for the possibility that it would hurt me, for the possibility of getting what he wanted. What am I willing to risk for the possibility of getting what I want? Car, I whisper. Instantly the red stallion's ears turn to me. His eyes are black and mysterious, pieces of the ocean. He is more dangerous every day. We are more dangerous every day. I can't bear the idea that Mutt Malvern would ride him if I left. Mutt thinks Benjamin Malvern will have my job for what happened today. I could just quit instead. I think of the satisfaction of that possibility, of taking the money I've saved and leaving the Malverns and everything they own behind. Cor makes a night noise. Barely audible, descending wail. It's the sound of a scream underwater, but from Cor it's a homing beacon, a confirmation that waits for an answer. I cluck my tongue once, and he immediately falls quiet. Neither of us moves towards the other, but we both ease our weight off one foot at the same time. I sigh, and he sighs as well. I can't go without Cor. Chapter 21. Puck. Based on my experience on the beach the day before, I form a new plan. Brave high tide with its possibility of water horses swimming up from the ocean, instead of riding later at low tide with its certainty of water horses menacing me on the beach. So I set my alarm clock for 5 o'clock and saddle Dove before she's properly awake. Gabe is already gone. I'm not even sure if he came home. I'm a little glad for the treacherous dark slope because it doesn't let my thoughts linger on what his absence means for us. Once we've gotten to the base of the cliffs, I have to move slowly, trying not to lead Dove into any of the boulders that scatter above the high water line. What little light there is reflects off Dove's breath, turning it white and solid. It's so dark that I can hear the sea better than I can see it. Shh, shh, it says, like I'm a frightful child and it's my mother, though if the sea were my mother, I'd rather have been an orphan. Dove is alert, her eyes pricked to the side, which is still a bit too high for proper training. When dawn finally arrives good and proper, the sea will grudgingly give up several dozen yards of packed sand for the riders to train on, giving them more room to get away from the ocean. But now the surf is still wild and close, cramping me to the cliff walls. I don't feel brave. High tide, full dark, under a nearly November sky. The ocean near Thisbe holds so many kapalushka right now. I know that Dove and I are vulnerable on this dark beach. There could be a water horse in the surf right now. There's a low throb in my ears. Shh, shh, says the sea, but I don't believe her. I adjust my stirrups. Dove doesn't take her ears from the surf. I don't mount up. I strain my ears for any sounds of life. There's just the ocean. The sea glints suddenly like a crafty smile that could be a reflection of a kabalushka's sinuous spine. Dove would know. I have to trust her. Her ears are still pricked. She's watchful but not wary. I kiss her dusty shoulder for luck and mount up. I steer her as far away from the tide as I can. Too far up and the sand gives way to pebbles and rocks, impossible to ride on. Too far down and shh, shh. I warm Dove up in easy, trotted circles. I keep waiting for my body to relax, to forget where I am, but I can't. Every reflection on the water makes me jerk. My body is screaming at me about the threat of that black ocean. I remember the story we're all told as soon as we become teens, of the 2 teen lovers who met illicitly on the beach only to be dragged into the waves by a waiting water horse. It was considered a good cautionary tale to all the youth of Skarmouth. That would teach us to kiss. But that story never seemed real, told in a classroom or related over a counter. Here on the beach, it feels like a promise. But it's no use to think about that. I need to use my time wisely. I try to pretend I'm up in the muddy pasture. For endless minutes, Dove and I exercise like this, trotting one way and then the other, then cantering one way and then the other. I stop between them to listen, to scan the darkness for anything more dark. Dove is calming down, but I can't stop shivering, both because it's cold and because I'm still wound so tight. There's just barely a bit of dawn far away on the horizon. The others will be here soon. I stop Dove and listen. Nothing but shh, shh. I wait for a long, long moment. Only the ocean. And then I push her into a gallop. Joyfully she springs forward, tail snapping in her thrill. The waves become one long dark blur beside us, and the cliffs transform into a wall of formless gray. Now I can't hear the ocean's shushing, only the pounding of Dove's hooves and the huffing of her breath. My hair escapes from its ponytail and beats my face, tiny lashes from tiny whips. Dove bucks once, twice, from the sheer excitement of running, and I laugh at her. We pull up short and race back the way we came. I think I see someone standing up at the top of the cliffs watching us, but when I look again, there's no one. I consider the morning's work. Dove is out of breath, and I'm out of breath, and the sea is retreating. The other riders have yet to come down to the beach, and we're already done for the day. This might work. I don't know how fast we were, but right now it doesn't matter. One victory at a time. Chapter 22. Sean. There's no one on the second floor of the tea room at this time of day. It's only me and a herd of small cloth-covered tables, each bearing a purple thistle flower in a vase. The room is long and narrow and low-ceilinged. It feels like a pleasant coffin or a suffocating church. Everything glows in slightly rose hues because of the pink lacy curtains in the front of the small windows behind me. I am the darkest thing in the room. Evelyn Carrick, the young daughter of the owner, stands by the table I sit at and asks what I'd like. She doesn't look at me, which is all right because I don't look at her either. I look at the little printed card on the tablecloth in front of me. There are some French words on the menu. The items in English are long and descriptive. Even if I wanted to order tea, I'm not sure I would recognize it. I'll wait, I say. She hesitates. Her eyes flicker to me and away again like a horse uncertain about an unfamiliar object. May I take your coat? I'll keep it. Having dried on my radiator overnight, my jacket is crisp with salt water and stained with mud and blood. Every day that I've been on the beach is written on it. I can't imagine her touching it with her small white hands. Evelyn does something complicated and useful looking with the napkin and saucer on the other side of the table, and then slips back down the narrow stairs. I listen to the creak of her footsteps. Every single step pops and groans. The tall, narrow tea-house is one of the oldest buildings in Scarmouth, pressed right against the grocer and post office. I wonder what it was before it sold petit pain. Malvern is late for the appointment he has set, an appointment whose timing I was expecting, if not the location. I turn to look out at the rose-colored window at the street below. Already there are a few long-necked tourists down there, here in advance of the festival, and I can hear the drummers practicing a few streets away. In a few days, I think the tables on this level of the tea-house will be full, as will the streets. At the end of the festival, the other riders and I will be paraded among the crowd, if I still have my job. I pull up the cuff of my sleeve a little to look at my wrist. The stiff jacket has rubbed my skin raw during the morning's training. There was a fight this morning among the horses, and I had to intervene. I wish Gory would give up trying to sell the piebald mare. She's a bad influence on the others. The stairs pop and growl as someone heavier than Evelyn climbs them. Benjamin Malvern strides across the room and then stands by the table until I rise to greet him. Malvern, who has been moneyed for his whole life, has that air about him of well-cared-for ugliness, like an expensive racehorse with a coarse head, the glossy coat, the bright eye, the bulbous nose over two fleshy lips. "Sean Kendrick," he says. "How are you?" "Tolerable," I reply. "How is the sea?" This is where he makes a joke to show empathy with me, and where I pretend it's funny to show I appreciate my salary. I smile thinly. "Well, as always." "Shall we sit?" I let him sit first, and then follow him. He picks up the menu card, but doesn't read it. "So, are you ready for the festival this weekend?" The stairs creak again, and it's Evelyn. She sets a cup full of frothy liquid in front of Malvern. "What'll you have?" she asks me again. I'm fine. "He'll not abuse your hospitality, dear," Malvern tells her. "Bring him a cup of tea." I nod to Evelyn. Malvern doesn't seem to notice her going. "No sense without when there's unpleasant business making it unpleasant enough," Malvern says. He drinks his strange, frothy tea. I'm silent, still and silent. "You're a man of no words, Sean Kendrick," he says. Outside the window, the practicing Scorpio drummers beat a tripping, ascending beat firmly at odds with the soft pink world we're in. He leans forward, elbows on the table. "I don't think I've told you the story of how I got into horses, have I?" I met his eyes. He goes on. "I was young, poor, an islander, but not on this island. I had nothing to my name but my shoes and the bruises on my skin. There was a man who sold horses down the road from us, royal horses and nags, jumping horses and eating horses. Every month there would be an auction and people would come from farther than you've been in your life to see it." He pauses, only to see if I am sad that my legs have grown into this island already. When he doesn't find what he's looking for, Malvern goes on. He got this one stallion in, golden like Midas touched him, 17, 18 hands tall, mane and tail like a lion's. To see him in the yard was to know what a horse should look like, but there was a problem. No one could back him. He'd thrown 4 men and killed another, and he was eating 4 or 8 bales of hay a day, and no one would touch an unbackable man-killer at that auction. So I told the man that I would break him, and if I did, he'd give me a job, and I'd never be poor again. The horsemonger told me he couldn't promise me that, I'd never be poor again, but he'd give me a job as long as he was alive. So I took that golden stallion and I bridled him. I cut a blindfold from a virgin's dress and covered his eyes, and I backed him. We galloped all over the countryside, him blind and me a king, and when I brought him back he was tame and I had a job. What do you think of that?" I looked at Malvern. He tips his foreign tea against his lips. I can smell the butter in it from here. "I don't believe you," I said. When Malvern raises an eyebrow, I add, "You were never young." "And here I was thinking you had no sense of humour, Mr. Kendrick." He pauses as Evelyn sets my cup of tea before me. She offers milk and sugar, and I shake my head. Malvern waits until she has gone back down the stairs before he speaks again. Malvern puts a napkin over the top of his teacup, as if it's a corpse instead of an empty cup. "My son says you killed one of my horses." Anger touches the top of my mouth, my chest with a hot hand. "You look unsurprised," Malvern adds. I'm not surprised, I say. Outside, the Scorpio drummers beat closer, louder, and there is laughter among them. One of the laughs in particular is a low, derisive chuckle, the sort that elicits a frown from those not in on the joke. Malvern's eyebrows draw down over his eyes, and his head is cocked as if he can imagine the scene outside more clearly than my face. The drums now sound quite intentionally like hoofbeats, and I wonder if he is seeing again the golden stallion the size of a barn galloping over the countryside of some alien island. Quinn Daly told me what he saw, Malvern says. He told me how you were exercising fundamental in the cove. He said that you seemed distracted. He said your mind was far from your job and you would have never seen a threat in the water. Of course I had been distracted. That ginger-haired girl and her island pony and the smears of blood on the sand from the savage mares. I cannot imagine that Malvern will fire me for this. Cannot imagine that he would fire me for anything. But then again, I can. I stand on a knife blade. I meet Malvern's gaze. What else did Quinn Daly tell you? That Matthew told Daly he would relieve him at his post and watch the cove. That the next thing Daly saw was fundamental going under and you diving after him. Malvern folded his hands together on the table before him. But that is not the account my son gave. It's their words against each other. What do you have to say? I set my teeth. This is an unwinnable game. I drag the words out. I cannot speak against your son. You don't have to, Malvern answers. Your jacket tells me which story is the true one. We're both silent. Finally, Malvern says, I would know your mind. What is it you want out of this life? The question catches me off guard. There may have been a person who I would turn the pockets of my heart out for them to see, but there was never a time when Benjamin Malvern was that person. I can't imagine confessing my wants to Malvern any more than I can imagine him confessing his to me. With his gaze on me, I say, a roof over my head and reins in my hand and the sand beneath me? A slender and abridged truth. Ah, so you have what you want already, then? I cannot sit here drinking this tea and tell him that what I want is to be free of him. It has been a long time since I broke that first stallion, Malvern says. I don't know what it looked like from the outside, this path I took to get to this ruin of an island in the middle of the ocean. I can't compare Matthew's path to see where he might be going. There are many paths that Mutt Malvern might be on, but I think we both know that none of them ends as the mogul of an internationally famous breeding yard. Ah, well, have you been at this long enough to know how the horses will go? Malvern means which of his water horses is the fastest. I knew that first day. Malvern smiles. It is not a pleasant smile, but its unpleasantness is not directed towards me. Which, then, is the slowest of them? The bay mare without white, I say with a pause. I haven't named her because she has yet to earn a name. She's flighty and sea-wild. She is not fast because she takes no pleasure in what the rider wants. Malvern asks, and which is the fastest? I pause before answering. I know what I say dictates who he puts Mutt on this November. I don't want to answer truthfully, but there is no point lying, and he'll find out eventually. Carr, the red stallion, Malvern says, and which is the safest? Edena, the bay with the white blaze. Malvern looks at me then, really looks at me for the first time. He frowns as if he's seeing me anew, the boy who has spent years growing up above his stable, raising his horses. I look at my teacup. He asks, why did you jump into the sea after fundamental? He was my charge. Your charge, but a Malvern horse. My son owned that horse. Benjamin Malvern pushes his chair back and stands. Matthew will ride Edena. Turn the other bay loose unless you think she'll shape up next year. He looks at me for verification. I shake my head. Turn her loose then, and you'll... He tucks some coins beneath the edge of his teacup. You'll ride Carr. Every year I wait and wait for him to say it. Every year when he makes his decision, it eases my heart. But this year, I feel like I'm still waiting. That is the end of chapters 18 through 22. Thank you so much for joining us today. Again, please make sure to check the description box underneath the video for your discussion questions. Feel free to use them to talk with your family or answer them in the comments box. See you next time.